Test, test. I'm testing a new mic. Just wish I could hear myself, I can't. So, anyway, it's 15th of June 24. It's a Saturday, and we had the elections last week. It went on from about Thursday to Sunday, and when I was watching Euronews, live, and it said that the young lady who was reporting said what she called the far right or whatever hadn't done as good as I expected. So I thought, oh, all right, okay, it's the people still aren't voting about not becoming a minority in the West. The natives, anyway, aren't voting. They still want to be a minority as fast as possible, really. But then I was looking at other places and that, and as I followed it seems that they've done really well, really, especially in France. I mean, France did so well that Marine Le Pen's party is a left-wing party, apart from immigration, really, as far as what I can see. They've done really well. I mean, they get 31% of the vote or something, and Macron called an election for the lower house over in France, and he's probably hoping that by calling it early, he's doing the same as Rishi Sunak, really, but it'll probably work out just as badly for him, and I hope so. Yeah, this is the only thing that people should be voting on in the West and in the settled colonies, that the people from the other parts of the world is one of the few places that they'll only choose to go to. They rule out probably 4 other continents apart from West Europe and the settled colonies of the USA, Australia and New Zealand. And then if they get citizenship there, they'll go on about colonisation, even though it's the West and the people that created the desirable settled countries, settler countries, USA, Australia, New Zealand, even though the people there are going to become a minority. But yeah, just on this thing, and apparently looking at the EU elections, well, France, Marine Le Pen, who's too soft now, actually. Her father was better, her niece is better. So is the other party, Reconquist or whatever. And then in Germany, the FD, they done well, but maybe not as well as expected. I mean, to me, these are all just protest votes on one issue, a single issue. I'm not interested in all the other policies. It's just there's nobody on the left or even the centre right who's been sensible about this. To me, it looks as if we're heading for anarchy, but we've not got a way to vote against it, either as a pause or looking at why this situation is happening. Why aren't people migrating to beautiful warm countries or staying there? Especially, a lot of countries around the world are still homogenous. They're beautiful, they're warm. Why do the people want to come to the West to the West? They only want to come to, say, West Europe or the colonised settler countries like USA, Australia, New Zealand, and they rule out everywhere else. Isn't that a bit of the R word in a way? And why aren't they places? Why aren't Corbynistas' granddaughters going to study in the University of Lagos or the University of Lahore or University of Mumbai? This tells you all you really need to know, really. Why are people coming to cold, windy, wet Britain? And one of the things I noticed is there was a few tweets about this. So the people sensible about immigration done reasonably well, or sensible about the debate that immigration should be, and it's the way that natives are going to vote 100% in the future. They should be voting it now. It's too late already. They're going to be a minority already. It's baked in. But one of the tweets, it's interesting to see people's tweets. I'll call them tweets. One was Dawn Butler MP, a Labour MP, and she's basically called voters who voted the way she didn't like the far right, and this is in capital letters, incels. So it's all right for a politician, an MP now to call voting trips incels, is it? You know, I'm guessing Matt Rowley at the Met Police, he was going on about hateful speech now, and he says this is too big a loophole. I'm guessing he'd be all right with this. You know, it's people that Don doesn't agree with who vote for legal parties. He's just calling them incels, um, or far right. They keep calling them far right. But really, my advice to Greens and Labour native voters is you're really going to have to vote on this issue. You're going to have to use your common sense. Are you heading for anarchy, or do you want to try and stop it? You know, if you think being a minority in Britain and it becoming a utopia, if you think we're going the right path, keep voting as you're voting, even vote Tory. But if you don't, you need to vote far right at the moment, basically, because there's nobody on the left apart from the Social Democrat Party. They're probably the best, but they're doing a terrible way of promoting themselves. For a start, they should change their name to something like Patriotic Labour or something like that. It's good that Nigel Farage has come in now, and I think he's a bit hit and miss, but I think he's been more honest now. He said the other day, like, on big issues, we need to use the Swiss electoral system, and that's what I've been saying. Like, you need to have referendums on things. Like in Switzerland, they have them quarterly. You know, that's what we need here. That's true democracy, direct democracy. And you don't need to do it in everything. Maybe bills or in big issues. Certainly, changing the country, making the natives a minority. Do you think that's a good thing? Are you happy for that to continue as it is at the moment? You know, that would be a good referendum question. And then maybe Labour and Green female voters will wake up, you know. But anyway, that's what. So Don Butler said, we were all warned about the rise of the far right and incels. The attack on woke feeds into this dangerous rhetoric. So basically, everyone's to shut up. You know, you're not. If you're anxious about anything, you're just to shut up. If you don't agree with her. But to me, my personal view is that everybody agrees that it's a bad thing for the natives anyway. But it's going to be a bad thing for everybody. It's going to be a disaster. In my opinion, it's going to be anarchy. You know, it's okay to think that it's going to, you know, it's going to arrange for saying it's great. Even if it's going to be anarchy, everybody does anarchy. You're not to say anything. I mean, personally, I think the West is going to become the worst civilizations ever to exist, really. And that's saying a lot, you know. I just can't see, because mixing tribal things from all over the world, from places that have got really bad reputations for women's rights and LGBTQT plus, etc. Personally, I think that's probably a bad idea, you know. But Labour and Greens seem to think it's a fantastic idea. You know, Greens say we're overpopulated as a world, but they want Britain to be overpopulated, as it already is. You know, somebody was saying this, I think it was that guy who runs INEOS, he was saying Britain's probably only designed for like 60 million people, really, and now we're up at 70 million, so even in that thing, you know, just that alone is a bit of a mistake. But, you know, and what else does Don say here? The surge in support for the far right across Europe is a warning for us all. Farage and Reform, some Tories should be nowhere near power. So she's sort of not saying Farage and Reform are far right, but she's saying they are, because she's putting them in the next sentence. But you've got to imply that, so probably she would put her right with that at a police interview or something, but that's not going to happen anyway, the way Mark Riley's talking. Not that I'm bothered, you know, I'm not bothered about it. I think it's shocking that an MP would use something like that to, like the word incels, to describe a big voting part of the EU voters, because Britain didn't vote in this. It was, the EU countries, France, Ireland. But if you're going to clamp down on, quote, hate speech, and really what you're doing is clamping down on debate of sensible things, because this immigration thing, it's like in everybody. It's like a boiling frog thing. It's sort of stuck in everybody's the party situation. You can't vote for anybody on this single issue. I mean, that's what Brexit was about, but that turned out worse because Boris basically done away with people coming in from the EU, which probably 60% were non-EU who moved to EU countries, say from Congo to Belgium. Then after 5 years, they would move to Britain. And so maybe in the old days, it was maybe 60% were really non-EU, were coming in via EU countries as easy. Brazil could go to Portugal. It was usually former colonies and such things. Somalia would go to the Netherlands. Apparently most Somali Dutch have moved to Britain. But now Boris just made it, just forget all that and just bring them on from the non-EU countries. So basically, they're coming directly from there now, thanks to Boris. 1.3 million last year. And as Nigel Farage was pointing out, that's 1 in 30 people that you see in the streets have just come to Britain in the last 2 years. And they're probably from Africa, Asia, Middle East, South America, Central America we're getting there as well. And as Rishi was saying about the boats, he was saying that because this year, I think it's actually a record-breaking year at the moment, because Rishi kept saying that last year it was down by a third the first time ever the boats were down. They call them boats, but they're called they're dinghies. The dinghies were down by a third. But this year it seems to be on course for record-breaking. And he says that's because this year we're having a problem with Vietnamese. They're making up the bulk. And it just goes to show you, I mean, no war or whatever in Vietnamese. We're always hearing about refugees and stuff. I mean, I don't think refugees should come anyway, unless it's a neighbouring country from a group who traditionally we have a historical connection to. It shouldn't be from, anywhere around the world that have got a terrible track record in women's rights and LGBTQ+. I mean, they should add that to becoming a British citizen, basically. Women's rights and LGBTQ+ should be a factor, but of course they're not at the moment. So we're getting the very lowest in the UN index on these things. Anyway, it's alright for Dawn to say that. I mean, as I say, I'm alright with her saying that, except she shouldn't say things like that. You shouldn't be rude. I mean, there's lots of things people can't say. I shouldn't assume. I can think of the N-word. You can never say something like that. And rightly so, really, but we all understand. And she even put it in capital letters as well, It's just sort of audacity, really. And Dawn really signifies to me how it's not going to experiment. This new experiment, this last 75 years in Britain, we were a homogenous country before, and humans have existed 350,000 years or something. This is a 75-year experiment. For other countries, it's even less than that. It's just going to be a disaster, because any country can be desirable if the people want it, Is there a country in Africa where the people desire to stay there and think it's going to be brilliant because other politicians look like them? And it doesn't seem to be that way, That's a place where everybody should be wanting to migrate to. It should be one of the top places, especially like Nigeria. So I just wanted to point that it just goes to show me, does it shows. And when I see the other newcomer MPs that over the last 5 years, there's that other well-built lady from London, MP. You know, I'm thinking this just isn't going to work at all. And I can see why the place where their families came from is maybe a bit of a undesirable place. You know, this is how quote respected politicians are behaving. You know, it's just not going to work at all. You know, and I can see why the countries are like that. And then we had this other one, Asama Biggins MP, Labour MP. Her former husband was on Maya Tussi's show the other day, and I thought it was excellent on it because he explained, he refuted all the abuse claims, and he says that the thing that she was charged with was she got a council house or something. She went to court for it, and she was found not guilty. Personally, I've not any faith in the court system and a lot of things. You know, OJ was innocent. You know, but yeah, he was explaining it all. He explained it all well. Maya kept interrupting, which was a nuisance. He said, just let the guy go because he was giving it everything that he needed to understand the situation. We don't know about the abuse. This was something that Sama added to the story after she got charged about housing benefit fraud. I think she got a council flat or house or whatever. Can't remember. Maybe 2012. But then she married him. She married him. Her family looked down on him because he was married before that, but his wife died. Even though they're all Bangladeshi British, I think his family don't agree with marrying somebody who's been married before, so they were against him from the start. You know, this is Brits. This is London for you now, and this is going to be a sort of majority thing in the future. These sort of things. But anyway, he was just saying she started living with him or whatever. And I don't know. I can't remember now. But then I don't know if she had a council house before that. Or once they split up, they tried a few times and they split up. She was on waiting list all that time. She hadn't taken her name off. And she got a flat. I'm getting it all wrong here, but anyway, she got a council flat that really she shouldn't have. When you look at it logically, you can see why the council took her to court, but the jury found her not guilty, you know. OG was innocent as well in front of the jury. So that's her story on that. But she said that she started to say during the story that she started to imply that she was in a domestic abuse situation. And he said he didn't really know at the start or something like that. He thought maybe they were talking about brothers or that. I don't know. I can't remember now. Sorry if I'm getting that wrong. But then after the court case, she started saying it was him or whatever. So he's wanting to see his piece now. It's taken him a bit long because the court case was 2021. But he went on Maya Tussi, which I thought was good. Because he said that the likes of Owen Jones and Nirvana media were sort of going along with that story by Asylum. Nobody was questioning it. So he was saying he was innocent of it and he wanted people to know. So, and he's actually standing in her constituency and Labour are standing there. I wonder if Aspire is standing there because I would imagine Aspire, which sounds a really Anglo word, really positive Anglo word, but it looks, looking at the councillors, it looks like they're all former Labour people who are Bangladeshi British, and so I hope they are sitting there because I would want them to win. But he's standing in as well, which is good, and I hope Piers Morgan picks up his story or whatever. Even though I hate Piers, people watch his YouTube channel, so you know. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting as well. As I say, I'll leave it at that for just now. I just wanted to point out that Don Buller. I mean, Hamza said something as well, Hamza Youssef. But I can't find it at the moment. But his was at least sort of dignified. It wasn't. But what I get the feeling is that everybody thinks this is a mistake, but the newcomers, there's no way that they're going back to their beautiful warm countries, homogenous countries, it seems. Um, British natives don't have a homogenous country now. We don't have a homeland, really. I think long term what's going to happen is a few of the states in America will break off and it'll be invitation only and there'll be a flight all across the West and especially including Green voters and because Green conferences look, well, the Scottish one anyway looks to be like a safe space basically, but they'll all flee their voters, traditional Labour voters will flee native. Basically, they'll give up the British homeland just for that reason alone. Who else? Yeah, let's see. Yeah, there was another story this weekend, and it was apparently the SNP have reported a hate crime against the Greens in Scotland. And no, not the SNP, Alba Party, and it's because in some sort of constituency in Glasgow, I don't know if it's for this election, I guess, they've put up a Hindu Scottish man. And the Greens in a sort of community in Glasgow that's got a lot of Muslim supporters, or people of that faith, probably all from Pakistan originally, but Pakistani British, Bangladeshi British maybe, Scottish. And the Greens have said that it's sort of race baiting or whatever. So Alba are reporting them for that. And apparently the Daily Record, I was getting this from, and I was saying something like, the guy is born in Scotland, Hindu Scots, but they say there's been tweets where he said things like mixed breeding is not a good thing or something, I don't know, but he said something that have upset, the Greens about the Muslim voters of Scotland or something. I don't know. I mean, when I've looked at some of these posts between Hindus and Muslims, whether they're British or whether they're still living in India or Pakistan, or even Muslims in India, I mean, the hatred seems absolutely shocking, I think native female voters are going to get a shock. Well, they can look now, but they're really going to get a shock. And we've brought that sort of tribal thing over here, along with Eritreans and Ethiopians, pro-Iranian government, anti-Iranian government. We've got the whole lot, we've got about 200 tribal dislike things. We've brought them all to Britain. LabCon have brought them all, Labour and Conservatives. Apparently, because it's going to be good for us. It's going to make us a utopia. Any other thing, a business decision, you think, hang on, we don't even know this is going to work, or whatever, we need to pause it. But you're not allowed, you've got to be either totally in favour of it, even though it might turn out to be anarchy. You won't get arrested if you're totally in favour of open borders and stuff. Doesn't matter how bad the reputation for women's rights are or anything, you don't judge them in that. But I think we're going to start seeing it now in these elections, because I think if you look at that guy from Birmingham, Yacoub or whatever, who got 75,000 votes in the Birmingham mayor election, I think he's got a good chance of winning Jess Phillips' seat, because Jess Phillips probably doesn't look very much like the majority of our constituency, I think there's another one, the Workers' Party might get there as well, you don't know. Maybe they might split and let Jess through, she might be able to struggle through that. I think that was clear shots old thing. But there's going to be a lot of constituencies now where the person who gets elected looks like their constituency, It's not like Jeremy Corbyn, who's been there 40 years, and when he get first elected, he looks like the majority of his constituency, Now now looks nothing like his constituency, and there's a lot of London Labour MPs like that now. They've been there for 40 years or whatever, Harriet Harman, Margaret Hodge, they're all retiring now. And finally, these places, the MPs are going to look like the constituents in the majority, or at least one part of the new majority. Leicester calls itself the minority majority now, Leicester Council. Yeah, so that thing about SNP, yeah, it's just ironic, all the mixes. I mean, you've got to judge for yourself, whether they said terrible things or whatever, and then you've got to judge yourself. And then Hums has brought in this hate crime, which was basically an anti-free speech crime, especially on this issue. And then now Alba are using it against the Greens of all people. And one thing that the Greens said, it was that the lady that helps, I don't know whether she's a deputy or whatever. I mean, she's a really good looking woman, I think, but how that helps Alex Salmond in his YouTube show and that. She used to be an MP. She was pointing out, I think it was her who was pointing out, or somebody else was saying, at least we've got minority candidates, unlike Greens, which is the point I've been making, like Greens classes like safe, a safe space. It looks like Scotland in 1947, basically, the people who go to it. And maybe green issues is not something that attracts people outside that, and maybe in their little cocoon they feel that Scotland hasn't changed, which it has already. It's already sunk, basically. That's you want to look at it. Yeah, it's about 10% now. It's probably a bit more than that now, especially in the last 10 years. So 1 in 10, probably more than that. But this is a new experiment never tried for in humanity. 50,000 years of humanity. The people have come from beautiful, warm, homogenous countries, but they don't seem to want to stay there for some reason. The only reason people should be immigrating now is for warmth, really. I mean, Lagos should be one of the most desirable places in the world. They are flourishing. There should be a flourishing, diverse place, which everyone dreams of living in. That doesn't seem to be the way people feel, and even Nigerians who live there, Lagosians or whatever they're called. And over there, they've done away with letting Westerners be in adverts, and I don't know if that means because they were white and the people were aspiring to it, or whether it was letting Nigerian British do the voiceovers or whatever, I don't know. Or whether the people there, because the president feels that it means that the people want to move to the West, which seems to be the situation. I'm just using Nigeria. I mean, it's the whole global south, as Hamza Yusuf refers to it. He referred to it that when at the big Green conference in December or whatever, when he was talking about money, where money should go, and he was saying it should go from the global north to global south. I think for global climate change reparations or something, I don't know. I mean, it's just money after money, That would be probably the only time he would refer to the global south when it's to do with money going from the global north. I mean, Nigeria should be one of the richest countries in the world, basically. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm just looking. That's all I can think of in that sort of stuff just now. It's just funny, like, this MP is really going to show people what Britain is going to, a bit closer to what Britain was like. But there's still too many Labour MPs that have been there for decades that don't look like their constituents anymore. But there's going to be quite a lot that come through, and we're going to have quote independence coming through, which all seem to be of a faith. they're calling themselves independents of this thing, but yeah. And as I say, the thing about Gaza, I've got total sympathy for the Palestinians. Uh, if it's any, Britain gave away that area, Palestine's wiped off the map. If it's any consolation, Palestinians are going to be part of the future majority, which will make British natives a minority. So we're going to be colonised and taken over as well, if that's any. And that will include Palestinians. I see in Ireland, I've been watching some of the videos about the tents there, and they're going, where you're from. People are asking where you're from. They're saying Jordan, Kuwait. You know, these places are war. Are just known how easy it is. They don't seem to want to live in Jordan or Kuwait, and even though they're really warm, nice countries, and they're just waiting for their houses, basically, free houses. At the moment, and they're in tents in Dublin. They keep getting moved on now, but they just pop up somewhere else with a tent, and they've all got the same tents. So some NGOs giving them the tents. I think it used to be Trespass, but it looks like they've stopped supplying the NGOs. Now it's another tent manufacturer. Not the tent manufacturer, the NGOs are buying off them, buying off them. Yeah. So if you're worried about all this, if you think you're doomed, if you're worried about your granddaughter's future or your future granddaughter's future, my advice is if you vote Green, Labour, you've got to think that you're voting that. Personally, I think you're voting that in a racist form, and that you're thinking the former way the country was within that spectrum. You're not thinking, female GM, that sort of thing, which is a tradition now in Britain over the last 75 years, and soon an MP will support it and make the case on behalf of those communities. So you're thinking in a spectrum, women's rights, LGBTQ plus, etc. I'd say you're being the R word because you've got a thing in mind about that. You need to actually, if you're worried, you think, and you're going to be worried after this election, you need to really vote Britain first, or you need to vote that sort of region. None of them are even good enough yet, because we need a total pause. You need to petition or lobby for a referendum. And a referendum, the question would be something like, do you think we should continue on the path of making the natives a minority? Yeah, that should be the question, really. Yeah, and if you're worried about that, you're anxious, women's rights, LGBTQ plus, I'd say you need to vote Britain first, basically, from what I can see, using my logic. But if you can't do that, vote Tory at least, because then you're telling them, I'm not just going to switch from Labour to SNP or Labour to Greens or Labour to Lib Dem and back and forward. I'm giving you a message. So vote Tory at least, if you can't bring yourself, because that's what it seems to happen in the EU as well. It seems to me that people want to vote on this issue, and if you want to vote on that, you have no choice really. But they can't bring themselves to, like in Holland, the PVV got about 23% of vote at the last election about 6 months ago. But then just after it, when they saw that the other parties were going to try and stop them again, imposed the PVV with 31%. So that was people who wanted to vote PVV wanted to vote on one issue, but they were too ashamed, which is why this has happened, because the people coming, my impression is that they're very ultra ethnicist, ultra nationalist for their homelands, and this won't happen in their homelands, I don't think, and they especially will be the West Indies, I suppose, will be the strongest support, like Modi and stuff in India. a friend of Rishi Sunak's wife's parents, you know. Yeah. What was I talking about? Yeah, just if you're a native, you need to vote Tory at least, or further, preferably for the right, or the Social Democrat Party, if you've got that chance. I mean, don't vote Workers' Party, or don't vote anyone who's open borders. Well, they all are at the moment, really. Um, so, yeah, that's what I think you've got to do. If you're worried about your granddad, if you think Britain's going in the right path, you know, and you're not worried about your granddaughter at all, you think it's going to be fantastic. Whether you've got a granddaughter now or in the future, your future granddaughter, then you just keep voting the way you're voting, basically. Even if it's Tory, if you're a Tory voting Tory, just keep voting that way. You know, if you're SNP, Labour, Lib Dem, Greens, or whatever, Workers' Party, you need to vote Tory at least, but preferably for the right, and make it a single vote. Okay, that's all I've got to say for just now. Yeah. Don't bothers. Cool, that's all incels. How nice is that? Don't bother an MP, you know. Yeah. Dang.